NFL season right around the corner. I really just want to see what's going on with these franchises, what moves people have to make, how far are people from these playoff windows. I know the Bears are in a good playoff window. Let me tell you something. Caleb's still on his rookie contract. Rome's still on his rookie contract. Luther's still on his rookie contract. We're good, baby. We're going to load up and we're going to pay Caleb what he deserves.
There are expectations for each and every NFL team entering every year. Some teams like the Seahawks, Rams, and Bills, and a handful of others too, will enter the 2026 season with a Super Bowl or bust mentality, but not every team is entering the year with lofty expectations. Some teams like the Cowboys and Chiefs are looking to get back to the postseason after missing the playoffs in 2025, and with the Cowboys and Chiefs, there are a lot of questions entering 2026, such as how will Dallas's defense play this year, and with Kansas City, how will you respond after a down year? But those aren't the only teams with questions entering the season, and there are a lot of big questions entering 2026, and in today's video, we're going to break down and try to answer how they will play out over the course of the next several months.
Let's see.
There's a lot to break down, and if you could like the video before we start, a football will appear when you do and would be very much appreciated. With that preface out of the way, let's begin.
Let's do it. I like what I'm seeing.
We are starting today's video by asking the Dallas Cowboys how will their defense play in 2026 after a tumultuous 2025 season.
I'm going to be honest with you right now. They got Caleb Downs. They got another person at linebacker. I feel like they're going to take a step forward as long as everything plays up to par. I don't think they're going to be as good as their offense because their offense is amazing. But I do feel like they're going to take a step in the right direction with the draft moves that they made.
The 2025 Cowboys season was very fun for fans at times offensively, as they had a 4,500-yard passer, a 1,200-yard running back, and 2 1,000-yard receivers, with one of those receivers going for 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. You would think based on those numbers alone that this team would have been a very difficult out in the postseason, and that you would probably ask, well, how far did they go in the playoffs?
Right.
But as we know, the Cowboys finished the year with a 7-9-1 record and also finished dead last in points allowed per game. And finishing dead last in points allowed per game is bad, but the 2025 Cowboys also were the 4th worst defense in the history of the DVOA statistic. DVOA stands for Defense Adjusted Value Over Average, and basically what it does is it measures value based on situational success rather than just raw numbers. So there is context applied to this, and for the Cowboys defense to finish 4th worst in the history of the statistic, which dates back to 1978, well, that adds up as to why they missed the playoffs last year. And their defense was the worst in DVOA since 1986, meaning the winless Lions and winless Browns were actually better than the 2025 Cowboys defense.
I'm not going to lie to you. They were really historically bad, though. If you watch any game, they were getting dunked on. Their offense was putting up all the work, doing all the numbers. They were worse than the Bengals all defense, and the Bengals defense was bad. So it's really unfortunate, but I feel like Jerry's world is cursed. I feel like until Jerry Jones take a step back and stops being the face and stops trying to call the shots, let the GM really be the GM, I feel like he's never going to sell the team. So I feel like until he does that, this is never going to work. It's just, I don't think they're meant to win any more Super Bowls. They got it all. And once Dak's gone, because Dak's getting old. One Dak's gone, oh my Jesus.
So the question that applies to this team that added guys like Rashawn Gary, Caleb Downs, and Malachi Lawrence this offseason is, how will you respond after having the year you did last year? Obviously for rookies it's a little different, but it's more of a general question to the Cowboys defense this year. Cowboys fans feel the way they do about former defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus for good reason. Again, the worst defense since 1986 in DVOA speaks for itself. But the biggest thing I would highlight about this team is the players they have on this defense are not bad. When you look around at rosters across the NFL, the Cowboys defense isn't close to the worst defense on paper. Sure, Rashawn Gary may not be the player he was a couple of years ago, but is he going to be the worst at his position this year? No, not even close. And I also like what they did in the first few rounds of the 2026 draft to bring in both Malachi Lawrence and Jayshon Barham.
And they bring
I know Jerry
hitters.
Jones definitely sets himself up for a hell of a lot of criticism, and the way they handled the Micah Parsons contract situation is a prime example, but walking out of the 2026 draft with an arguable top 5 player in this class in Caleb Downs is a good example of what the Cowboys usually do in the NFL draft.
That's true.
From 2020 through 2022, their first round picks were CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Tyler Smith, And the reason people love to criticize the Cowboys and Jerry Jones is because they actually have expectations. And it is unfortunate with how good of a season the offense had last year that it was really for nothing. They had a minus 40 point difference last year, and they had a quarterback in his prime throw for over 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns,
Wasting the
and
exact
still
prime.
finished with a losing record. So when we look at the 2026 Cowboys, well, how are they going to respond? How are players like Donovan Ezaraku and Savone Ravel going to play in year 2?
Right.
I like the way they attack the edge position this offseason because a good pass rush can offset a lot of bad things on a defense.
That's true. Like, you can really survive with an amazing pass rush and average linebackers and average DBs. But if you have amazing linebackers and DBs, but the pass rush isn't there, it's gonna be false. It's gonna be cracks. You can be as good a cover as you want to cover, be a good coverage guy, be a good tackle guy, whatever. That pass rush, that D line ain't doing his damn job. Look at the Bears. I feel like our back end was alright. I don't feel like they was the best ever. I feel like they was at least mid of the pack though. But our pass rush was low, so they were getting put in high stress situations. They got to stick longer than they can do. You know, they got to stick for 5-6 seconds on average, or 4 or 5 seconds on average instead of 2-3. Gonna be a lot of cracks.
They also have Quinnen Williams along the interior to help get after the quarterback too, and the question that will be asked all summer for this team is, can we just not be historically bad defensively? Because if they can do that and even finish with the 25th worst defense in the NFL instead of a bottom 5 defense over the past 45 years, then this team can make serious noise in the postseason. The Philadelphia Eagles are up, and the biggest question for this team as we enter 2026 is what's next. Because 1 year ago right now, this was as high as you could be on a team entering a season, because in the 4 playoff games they had in the 2024 postseason, only one of those games was within single digits. And even the game they won by 12 points against the Packers could have very easily been won by 3 scores, but as we know, Saquon Barkley fell down with time running out in that game against Green Bay. So this was a team that absolutely dominated their way through the postseason. They won by over 30 points in the NFC Championship game.
True.
They were up 34-0 at a point in the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had 3 total touchdowns in the Super Bowl. It was kind of funny because the Chiefs shut down Saquon Barkley, and they did everything they could to take him out of the game, and the Birds still put up 40 points. But the 2025 season was a drastic turn of events, and despite starting out 4-0, even when they did start out 4-0, there were significant questions because they could only put together one half of football at a time. They were getting killed by the Rams in the Week 3 game, in which the Birds eventually came back to win as they won 33-26, but they were down big time at half, and they were down by as much as 19 points early in the third quarter.
No, definitely. It was getting nasty for him. I don't want to put the blame all on Jalen Hurts, but I feel like Jalen Hurts needs to step up and be more of a passer, demand being a passer, because it's just looking bad when you got 2 all-pro receivers on the left and the right, and you got an all-pro running back, and you can't really get it done. So I feel like if they're going to lock in on Saquon, as we know they are, because you can't go, it's hard to have a historic season and go back to a high productive season. You're going to have a slump. I think he's still a 1,000-yard rusher, but still. It was just the fact, like, it wasn't as good as it was the previous year. We're going to need to depend on you more, Jalen. And honestly, I'll rock with you. But maybe Philly isn't for you. I think you need a fresh start with fans that appreciate you. Don't come to the Bears, though. We got a quarterback. Someone else will appreciate you. I say swap with Justin Herbert. You probably have more success over there.
That was kind of how the 2025 season would go for the Eagles, and we're now at a point where there is serious questions around the future of Jalen Hurts. And I think the Jalen Hurts conversation can be a bit tiresome at times, and I personally think that Jalen Hurts is a fine quarterback. And I think at times there's a bit much of microanalyzation in today's society, and I think at times that you'll see a lot of Monday morning quarterback where people will basically sit here and say, well, this 3rd and 6 with 3 minutes and 14 seconds left in the third quarter, Jalen Hurts threw a 2-yard drag route, and he clearly should have been able to tell that there was zone coverage, and because the linebacker was right there in zone coverage, that he was obviously going to come down and make the play as soon as the receiver caught the ball. So Jalen Hurts, he couldn't be a franchise quarterback in my team, and just go to the absolute extremes. And I think it was
People do go to the extreme with Jalen Hurts, but I feel like it's because we have such high expectations for Jalen Hurts, like what he's done, what he's showing us, who he is as a person, as a player. I have high expectations for Jalen Hurts, so that's why I want him to ball. Especially, you're not in my division, so ball out. We'll beat you in the playoffs anytime. Spank that ass just like we did last time. You dig what I'm saying? But I will say, you gotta do more, man. You gotta do more. As a leader, as a Tom Brady wouldn't go for that shit. All I'm saying. I ain't saying you like Tom Brady, but nigga, you great too. You gotta do what you gotta do, man. Peyton Manning wouldn't go for that shit. You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes to get that ball, get it going. That buck.